Okay, so we talked about the back, talked about the bevel. Now it's time for me to do a bit of a visual inspection. I want to square or make sure that the business end of my chisel is nice and square, which it is, which looks great. If that was coming off at an angle, it would now become a skew chisel, which is good for getting into corners, but really bad for cutting traditional joinery. Keep fighting with the focus. Okay, so now once I'm square, I'm in good shape. Now I've got two options. I can throw in the towel there, call it quits, or I could pursue either one of the next two options. So looking at my fancy drawing once again, let's say that we've worked hard. We now have this primary bevel here at the 30 degrees that we discussed, and that's where we want to be. We can do something which a lot of people swear by, which makes some sense when we start giving consideration to it. We can create a secondary bevel or a micro bevel on the very tip of this chisel. The micro bevel is pretty ingenious for what it is, in that when we go to resharpen, we now no need to worry about this much of the bevel of the blade. We only need to worry about whatever that micro bevel or secondary bevel is producing or presenting to us. So we can sharpen there for the next time, maybe 4 or 5 passes depending on how damaged this one is. Same angle, just keep working our way back. We're going to eventually need to resharpen the primary bevel to that 30 degrees to get the geometry on our side, but a lot of people swear by this micro bevel option, and that's fine. Let's say that I did want to do it. Two things. If we do use the Veritas honing guide, this wheel, that was the piece that's making contact with the stone the entire time, there are detents or locations that are concentric on this center point. So what you didn't see is I pulled this out, rotated it to, I guess this would be counterclockwise, and then now that automatically creates a steeper orientation of where you're sharpening, thus creating the micro bevel. Pushing this back to the standard position, then it's ready to sharpen the primary bevel as I need to. If you're using an eclipse style of tool or honing guide, if I'm set up here to have the correct projection as we talked about, what I'll need to do is loosen this chisel and then pull it back just a little bit. And I want to have something that I could slide between these two pieces consistently, and that's just going to be a square, the blade of a square. This is about 1/8 of an inch, probably a little bit less. Once I've done that, I retighten this thing down, and then this is introducing just the tip of that that chisel onto the sharpening stone, and then continue to do this. It really doesn't take more than half a dozen passes, and you don't have to go through all of the grits. You can do this just on the highest grit if you choose. It's pretty low key with respect to what it is you need to do. So you might have caught on to the fact that I am not a big believer in the micro bevel, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just feel like I get the same effect by doing something a little bit different. Sorry for dancing around here. So the micro bevel or secondary bevel does what we talked about. I'm going to introduce something referred to as a strop, which is basically just a piece of leather that's been mounted or adhered to some type of a backing. Should really check for my focus. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so strop is here. Yeah, strop. Can you all see that? I hope you can. Yeah, great. All right. So a piece of leather bound to something rigid is the easiest way to create the final polish on both the back of the chisel and the bevel. So what I'm doing is, if I'm going to run the back of the chisel down here, not to worry. It's really the bevel that I'm thinking about. So if my chisel is standing out in this location like so, 30 degrees here on the bevel, that creates a 30-degree situation for how this is introduced onto the leather. What you can't see but happens is that that leather has some give to it. And so this steel is going to push into that leather just a little bit, creating a little bit of rounding on the part that we don't care about, and a subtle amount of rounding on this as we, nope, we can't do it that way, sorry, as we slide this across that leather. So I'm kind of getting a micro bevel, even though I've said that I'm not a big believer in them for the sake of time. I understand the argument, and I don't think anybody's wrong with it. I haven't felt like that experience makes a lot of sense for me. But try it. Okay, this is a strop here, piece of leather. It's the open grain. There's no tanning. There's no polish on this thing. What I'm rubbing onto the leather, more specifically the open pores of the leather, is just a buffing compound. And these come in different polishes. I think white is a slightly finer grit, the rouge is a bit more aggressive, and green is a bit more aggressive still. What I want to do, there's a handle on this one, which should be a clue. This is how I hold it, close to my body this way. I don't want to hold it this way. So holding it here, I'm going to raise it up just because it's easier to hold when I'm flattening the back. So I'm just pulling towards myself, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I can automatically see that this is starting to polish up pretty great. I don't want to forget about the bevel. So finding my bevel angle, now I'm going to rest this down on the bench. It's just a little bit less moving parts. Keeping good pressure down. 1, 2, 3, finding that angle every time. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that polish is pretty great. What you can't see, I hope you can, I'm not sure if you can. Yeah, there's no way you're going to see this. What you can't see on the very tip of this thing is a slightly different shine or polish on this, and that tells me that I've gotten that little micro bevel or secondary bevel from what it is I was trying to do. And that's the goal. So I'm still creating some abrasion here, even with the buffing compound, so I could have a tiny little bit of a burr. So I'm going to flatten the back one more time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I would go on, so on and so forth. I would do 8 here, 8, 7, 7, all the way down until I get down to 1. But this is a very sharp chisel now. And the way that woodworkers like to check for how sharp these tools are is kind of crazy to me, but it is understandable. Some people like to shave the hair off their arm, which is okay. I told you this is a dangerous thing to do, and as woodworkers, I try to promote not cutting yourself when you could avoid it. But it doesn't really give me feedback about how sharp it is all the way across that chisel. So I'm not a proponent of shaving anywhere with your woodworking tools. I told you about my trick about dragging my thumbnail across this, and I can feel that it's starting to grab a little bit more aggressively than it did before I did the stropping, which is good. That's what we want to do. I think the best way to check for sharpness on a chisel is to get a piece of paper. Oops. And I could walk this down the whole way, and I could start to slice as well as push, and that will give me some instant feedback as far as where I am sharp or if there are any dull spots along the way. Oops. Yeah, another reason a 1/2 inch chisel is a good choice here. Alright, so if you could do this with a chisel, nobody is going to give you any grief about your sharpening abilities. But that's sharpening. It's the same process for narrow chisels, wider chisels. It just takes a little bit longer on the wider chisels. And plane blades, the only thing different about any of this is how they're mounted into the honing guide, especially if you're using an Eclipse. and then the geometry, 25 degrees versus 30. And if you're using Japanese chisels, sometimes you can go higher than 30 degrees on the Japanese chisels. I use Japanese chisels, which are here, and mine like to be set at around 33 degrees. It sounds fussy, I know, but you'll see a big difference as far as the longevity of the blade and the quality of the cut that you're getting. With Japanese chisels, because of the way these are constructed, I would not recommend doing a micro bevel or a secondary bevel on a Japanese chisel. I've heard horror stories about coming in to strike into something that you're cutting after a micro bevel has been introduced, and then having the harder steel and the softer steel start to delaminate or fracture. And that is something that I never want to experience in person, so that's got me terrified enough to not try it. Okay, happy sharpening.